Good morning, everyone, or if you're in South Korea, good evening. I apologize for being late if anyone that cares about an international friendly between South Korea and the Côte d'Ivoire, known as the Ivory Coast. And if anyone thinks of Ivory Coast, you're probably thinking of Didier Drogba, the huge legend out of Chelsea and even in the MLS. The game has already began. We are 6 minutes in. We actually had some technical difficulties or even just getting the game to work. We were actually 1 second away from overhauling this entire show. Anyways, we're just going to get started. We'll do introductions to each other at the half. South Korea is picking that out.
What?
Oh, you want introduction, don't you?
No, well, listen. This is the best part about March. We knew this was happening coming into it. It's essentially what we like to call a dress rehearsal for the World Cup, and it's where instead of having rotations inside the national team, this is generally where you're going to see essentially your first teams. The best players that your nation has around the world. And this is also an opportunity for coaches to have that continuity, to bring that chemistry together, because as you know, Joe, man, we're less than 80 days away from the start of the World Cup. So these two friendlies are absolutely massive for South Korea. And when you think about what South Korea has been going through for the last year and a half, the debacle with Jurgen Klinsmann, having to go back to an old coaching legend just to bring some stability to the national team, South Korea's kind of been through some stuff. So these two friendlies, especially this one against the Ivory Coast, man, this one's kind of important.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely important. This is a time where they're going to start using, like you said, their first units, even though in the past 4 years, I was pleading with them, not that I was in direct contact, but I was begging them to be like, hey, start playing some of your young players, because there's that young guy in Turkey. He could be their striker for the future, because Son's not getting any younger. And
Correct.
South Korea is trying to get to that goalkeeper, and I think that should have been out of bounds, but it goes back to Korea, so it's pretty much advantage at this point, and they're in attacking position, and now they're reset.
And it looks like they're doing a really good job of trying to press high, trying to keep the Ivory Coast on their back foot right there. It's interesting you mentioned South Korea's youth, because they're doing a very good job within the K-League and the structure within the K-League of developing young Korean players. Spurs just signed one, I think, last year with Yang Min-huk, who was one of the best young stars right there in the K-League. And so, you're not wrong about the development of young South Korean players.
Yeah, exactly. And I also just looked up Ivory Coast. They are also in the World Cup. They will be playing Ecuador, Germany, and Morocco. Yeah, it looks like a team that is hoping to have beginner's luck.
Curacao.
Yeah, not Morocco.
The little tiny island of Curacao.
And now my feed just pretty much just crapped out.
Yes, so did mine, but I got mine. I got mine back up again. As that one will take a deflection, and that'll be against the left-hand touchline right there after a deflection. And I think this is going to be an Ivory Coast throw-in here in just a second. By the way, the head coach of Korea is
He was a starting center back, I believe, for the 2002 World Cup.
Yep.
Other than his amazing contributions in the 2002 World Cup, he might be most remembered for giving up a goal against Turkey in 11 seconds, World Cup record to Hakan Şükür.
Right.
And I know some Turkey people. Every time I bring that up to them, their eyes literally light. I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
I will say that it's kind of hard to gauge exactly where South Korea is. Now, what I will say is that, definitely they actually have some of their best players scattered around Europe playing for some pretty impressive clubs. But one has to wonder whether or not, this generation of Korean players is like maybe one, possibly two cycles over their prime, right? I would like to think that, especially when you're kind of looking at Sonny And you're looking at those players that came through his generation, like the 2018 and 2022 World Cup. It almost feels like that was their prime years.
It was.
But potentially get done.
And now here is going to be, and they're actually on the attacking side. Here's number 22. And now they're bringing it out to the corner. And I think they're going for a shot. Here's the shot. Oh, over the goalkeeper and over the bar. That was Hwang Hee-chan with the attempt. That was a very good attempt, but just went over. But I did like the aggressiveness of South Korea. And yeah, I've been saying it too. Like 2014, now as much as it was an unacceptable time, an unacceptable result, but it was kind of understandable that much of their young talent was still like in their teenage years. 2018 and 22, I think they should. I'm not saying they should have won the World Cup because it's really hard to do that sometimes, given the heavy competition of World Cup. And no, they're reset. Given the heavy competition of World Cup, sometimes like a round of 16 or a quarterfinals is considered like winning the World Cup. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but just the scale, the fact that the tournament happens every 4 years, it's very difficult to even get to a quarterfinal. So I think if Son made it to a quarterfinals with South Korea in 18 and 22, or I think at least the results would have been respectable. More than respectable, actually.
I would agree with you. And I will say that it's not necessarily a bad thing to have those type of expectations, considering that, Korea's, best World Cup showing was in, essentially when they hosted it back in 2002. And it was such a long time ago. And when you look at, I guess you can say the structure of the World Cup, it usually favors UEFA. Some of the best teams are in Europe. And then if it's not in Europe, then it's South America, whether that be Argentina, whether that be Brazil, Colombia, whatever the case may be. And so when you look at the field, it's so top heavy. And then, it's the same thing with the United States, right? When you really think about it, where it's like if they can get past the round of 16, that's considered a good World Cup showing, right? And it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a defeatist mentality where it's like, shouldn't you strive to win the damn thing? It's like, yeah, of course. But you also have to look at it from a lens of reality, where it's like, in order to win a World Cup, you're gonna have to knock off some of the best teams in the world in order to do it. And when you look at the talent that a Team Korea has, it's like, is it capable? Sure, because the World Cup also favors like hot teams. Sometimes teams can get on a roll and they can find themselves in territory where they've never been before. But that being said, it's like you still have to. There still has to be some things that have to happen in order for that to go down. And sometimes it can happen. We saw it in 2002 where they were able to get to a semifinal. But for the most part, realistically speaking, these competitions usually play to some of the better teams in the world. And if South Korea can find themselves in a quarterfinal, yeah, you would probably have to say like that's a pretty goddamn good showing for South Korea.
Yeah, and I would even argue that Korea making it to the quarterfinals in foreign soil would be more impressive than making it to the semifinals on home soil. I think most would agree with that.
I think when people look back at the 2002 World Cup, I think a lot of people will potentially use the term, there might have been some shenanigans with the refs. And maybe it was, I wouldn't say rigged. I'm not going to say that. Right. But there have been in history some shenanigans when it comes to FIFA in home host nations. Right. So me personally, I don't look at it that way. I actually think Korea had a phenomenal tournament. But that being said, you're absolutely right. If they were able to do it in the United States this summer, I would probably assume that would be a little bit more impressive than what they did back in 2002, just considering the amount of travel that it's going to take in order for them to compete in the United States.
Well, the other thing, too, here's the case study why I think refs alone were not the reason. First, you have to be a freaking good team, because we saw, case in point, Qatar. The refs were trying to do everything they can to get to the round of 16, and they scored only one goal. So it's not like the refs like completely determined the outcome. Now, Were there questionable calls? Absolutely, but questionable calls are part of the game. And there's a difference between the two nations. Like Italy, they're still talking about it to this day. Those Italian fans, and most likely they're the players that played in 2002, they're probably at this point passing it down to their grandsons going, oh yeah, that team Korea, that they messed us over. If you get a chance to beat them. But then
do you know
Spain,
what I think it was?
What was it?
This is what I think it was. And you're absolutely right, because you would like to think that they were trying to get, it was the same thing back in 2010 with South Africa as well too, where it's like you kind of want to see the host nation be represented and respected. And if you can potentially get them to a round of 16, then at that point, you're going to let the team and their skill take over from that point at that point on. I personally believe that nobody knew South Korea in 2002. Nobody understood exactly how talented their players, because a lot of these teams, the Italys, the Germanys, France, England, they don't play South Korea in friendlies. Right, South Korea generally plays and keeps their international friendlies or their competitions inside the Asian Confederation. Right, so a lot of teams in Europe don't watch the Asian Confederation, so they didn't necessarily scout South Korea all that much. And when it came time to play them, they found out exactly how good that South Korean team was in 2002. You know what I mean? And for me, that's what I think it was. I don't think it was refs, giving the home nation some decent calls. Maybe they did. I don't know. What I know is, like, when I watch back on some of those games, that South Korean team was essentially playing with house money. They acted and played like they had nothing to lose, and they went out there and they just took it to teams, and they were able to get good results. Right? It looked like they played that tournament without an ounce of fear. That's, to me, what it looked like.
And that's what it was. And now we have Italy that still lets it live rent free in their heads even after winning 06. But we also have Spain. They don't really talk. They kind of got over it. But
sure.
And look at Italy right now. Italy as a nation in football is just a disaster. They've been a disaster since 2010. And they're still barely maybe going to crack a World Cup spot because they're still in the playoff.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see if Italy makes it. They've had a bad run over the course of the last, I actually think this goes back to, 2016 to 2018. Because if you remember, when the United States didn't qualify in 2018, neither did the Netherlands and Italy as well too. And as bad as it was in the United States when we didn't qualify, you imagine, the Italian football fans not qualifying to even get to a World Cup, a competition they've won. And so from that standpoint, you look at their development, and you're starting to see.
Here's a shot, and it gets to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily look like a shot as much as it looked like it was a through ball in, because they had a runner there cutting to the far post right there. It didn't look like that was necessarily a shot as it was him trying to find that run at the back post right there.
And then looks like we got another opportunity. It looks like he is onside. Here's the shot. It's the crossbar, the post. Missed opportunity.
And homeboy was there as that ball ricocheted right off the back post right there.
Yeah,
it fell right to his feet, and he couldn't corral it. Oh,
it was a really good shot too.
For Korea. Good scoring opportunity right there.
It was, and it looked like he was offside, but they went. My goodness!
Way onside. He was way onside. That's a good shot right there. Had the keeper completely fooled as he went far post right there. Oh,
by the way, it looks like Son's not starting, which I'm okay with that. Let's these young guns get a chance. The guys who hasn't really played, I have no problem with that. And plus, I would load manage Son as much as you can, because he is not. He's my age. He's old.
What I will say is that this has to be. You have to treat this as a dress rehearsal, right? So in these two matches, it's like it all depends on what you want to do, right? Like for me, it's like you're going to have to play him at least in one of these two. one of these two matches, at least to be able to get him, him into some rhythm. Now, that being said, it's like you have to think that there had to have been some kind of discussion between LAFC and the South Korean Federation, and maybe they want to play him, but maybe LAFC is like, okay, well, how about you play him in maybe one of these two matches instead of playing 90 minutes in both matches.
Here's an opportunity, and there is a shot, as there could be a chance, and they're trying to get in position. And no, Ivory Coast was ready for that, but South Korea is looking pretty good. They just have to finish, and now they're going to reset. They still have, here's Hwang Hee-chan, and he is getting bottled up, and Ivory Coast now has it.
Yep. And it looks like South Korea has come out in a 3-4-2-1. And so essentially what they're doing is on defense, they're playing in a back five. And it looks like their goalkeeper is going to be Joe, a back three of Kim, and Cho. And then their midfield four is going to be Seoul on the right-hand side, Park and Kim in the middle of the field. Kim is going to be on the right as a right wing back, with Wang and Bae underneath, and then O up top as your primary striker. And it looks like the Ivory Coast is playing in a 4-3-3 with Fofana in net, a back four of Due, Agdabayu, Indika, and then Akpa, a midfield three of Guingamp, Seri, and Fofana, and then a attacking three of Ndingra, Godo, and Guasand up top. So there's your lineups right there.
Yeah, and Oh Hyung-gu is the one to look at. He's right now playing in Turkey. He's been scoring 4 goals in 7 appearances. He was previously with the Celtic Scottish club. He was also in the Belgian club. So he's been everywhere, but he is expected to be, I think he is expected to be one of the hyped forces for South Korea, especially for striker, because South Korea, I mean, they're going to need a striker after Son is gone.
Yep, absolutely. And you would probably have to figure that this is probably going to be Sonny's final World Cup.
Has to be
for South Korea. Yeah, 100%.
Unless he has like unlimited conditioning of like a Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. Even though Ronaldo at this point, I think he has charmed his way to still be with Portugal. And when it's clear that it's like, dude, just let it go, man. But he wants to play in America. That's probably what it is. He probably negotiated with the coach, and they're probably like, okay, fine, but you're going to be a sub and nothing more than a figurehead because we have good young players in Portugal. So you listen to me, because he did throw a temper tantrum in the 22 World Cup, as we do got a free kick. So this could be a crucial opportunity for the Ivory Coast.
So the funny thing is, like, Sonny's first World Cup, he made the 2014 World Cup squad. In Brazil.
And
I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know what his role was on that World Cup
here
squad.
Is going to be a shot. Here is, it's right off the wall, and now another shot, and they're trying to clear it, and that's just going to be a throw-in. That's going to be for Ivory Coast, and yeah, he was with that team. I think he was more of a midfielder or a winger. I did not like what they did with him. They should have made him striker, but they made Park Chu-young the striker when he was pretty much clearly over the hill. He was rotting in Arsenal's bench for like 4 years, which completely backfired on him. Now, did he get paid? Absolutely, nothing wrong with that. But when you play for Arsenal, it's going to be hard to crack even a spot, unless you basically do what Son did when he played for Tottenham.
Right. Well, my point is, like, that's 16 years, right? It's insanely hard for any player, to get into a World Cup squad, let alone 4, right? You don't necessarily see 4-cycle players because, you have to have that type of longevity. Not only do you have to be able to stay healthy, but you also have to be able to stay productive in order to reach that level. It's like you would figure like good players will get 3. That's 12 years, and that's a good bulk of their prime. And it's like those that are only like the special, like the top would never get to that 4 World Cup threshold. So from that standpoint, I mean, that just shows you just how special Sonny has been, essentially since, his Bundesliga days, being able to actually get into the get onto the periphery and also make an impact to even get even into the World Cup squad. It's actually simply amazing that, here he is now in 32, 33. And, he's making he's probably going to be making his 4th appearance. That's unbelievably special, man.
Yeah, and J Boy of Twitch goes, is Son playing? He is on the bench right now. So
yeah,
and right
he's
now
on
they're
the
on
bench.
commercial.
Yeah.
Right now they're on commercial break for the World Cup. Kind of unusual, but it is friendly. So I guess they're more. I think there's an injury timeout.
Yeah, you probably think that there might have been an injury timeout here. But this is it. By the way, this Korean broadcast is actually pretty sweet. I got to be honest with you, man.
It is. They don't mess around with the internet. I mean, they've got to have faster internet than we do.
No, but it's wild though. Looking at these Korean commercials, and I'm just kind of like, I'm sitting there like, yeah, this is actually pretty sweet. It's something completely different. Shohei
Ohtani he's even featured in Korean commercials. So as much as there's been beef between South Korea and Japan, hey, Ohtani and South Korea figured something out to build some kind of a business relationship.
Good for Shohei. Let's say J Boy 56-2 562 is actually asking who you got winning.
Usually these things kind of end up in a tie when South Korea is on these friendlies. But the way it's playing right now, I think South Korea does have a chance. But I don't really have much of a scouting report on the Cote d'Ivoire.
Right.
They typically don't do well in the World Cup. They're typically first-round fodders, unfortunately. As they're actually on the attacking end, they're going to reset. And they're going to reset all the way out. The last time South Korea and the Cote d'Ivoire played, it was in 2010's friendly before the World Cup. South Korea won 2-0. And that was and one of the notable goal scorers was Lee Dong-gook. Lee Dong-gook, if anyone is a Premier fan, you probably might remember him that he tried a shot with the Middleburg, which did not work out. And he had already torn his ACL. And I think that's what they didn't pay attention to. Lee was primed to play as a striker in the 2006 World Cup in Germany. But then he suffered a knee injury, which I think it was his ACL tear, which forced him out of the World Cup. And he was to be one of the strikers. And I think it did cost Korea dearly, but if anyone that knows him, he's not exactly known to do anything else but trying to score. So that he was one of the more up and down players in South Korea history, but he did end his career, played throughout his prime years, I guess, or just after the prime years in the K-League. And he became the highest scoring striker of all time in the K-League.
There you go. So the Ivory Coast is actually one of Africa's better teams. In the recent AFCON, African Cup of Nations, they actually won their group on 7 points. And when you look at their matches over the course of the last year, they've actually been a very successful team. What I will say is they're not as good as what they used to be. Like, I remember the Ivory Coast in the 90s producing very good teams, very good players. But what I will say is that they're still very competitive inside their confederation. They actually have some very good players that are scattered around Europe. One of their best players is Adingra, who plays for Sunderland at the moment. So specifically for this game, the reason why I like South Korea is because they're at home. You know what I mean? There is something to the, the host nation when it comes to some of these friendlies that the Ivory Coast has to travel for this one. And from that standpoint, you kind of feel that the home advantage kind of favors South Korea at this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up being like a 2-1 South Korea win.
Possibly, hopefully something like that. Last time I remember South Korea playing in a friendlies, they embarrassed the United States 2-0, one of them off of a Son score.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the last time that the U.S. kind of played in Pochettino's base 4 back system. They went to a back 3, and from that point, the U.S. started cooking with gas at that stage. But what I will say is that that match right there in New York. Yeah, South Korea looked great. South Korea looked very good, and Sunny was unbelievable in that match.
And that's what the kind of performance that we are hoping for consistently, as my game is pretty much just frozen.
Yeah, my stream was working pretty good right there. It looks at this stage that the Ivory Coast is trying to press forward, put a little pressure on South Korea's back line right here. See if I can restart this.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to
do
too.
For the most part, South Korea has held possession for a better part of this one, and I'm just hoping this thing.
I know, I feel it too.
You feel it?
Feeling the pain. But luckily for the World Cup, we won't have to worry about this because it's going to be all on basically any kind of cable. Now here's going to be a corner kick attempt, and now South Korea gets the ball, and they are kicking it out, but it's going to go all the way to the goalkeeper. And now he's going to reset. Oh, yeah, I should probably check and see who won the playoff in the South Korea group, because it's going to be South Korea, Mexico, and South Africa. And there is still, and it's still up for grabs as of now. I got to check. Yeah, it's still to be determined at this very moment. Right now, it's going to be between Czech Republic and Denmark. Denmark won 4-0 2 days ago. Czech Republic won on penalties. Now it's going to be Czech Republic and Denmark.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, and it looks like South Korea is doing a good job defensively. Ivory Coast is having a hard time trying to play through the middle of the park, and it feels like pressing forward, keeping the ball sideways, not allowing Ivory Coast to move vertical. Right there was a good, example of that. Right there is, that ball inadvertently gets played out because of South Korea's press. And I like what South Korea is doing too. They're just trying to make quick passes, trying to get up the pitch as quick as possible, getting themselves into good attacking positions right here. And it just feels like the Ivory Coast is essentially playing the ball sideways and backwards. Yeah, South Korea is pressing pretty well. As that ball is, they're going to try to play this one long.
Oh my goodness. Ivory Coast looks like they scored. Oh my gosh. They did score. That's going to hurt.
Oh.
Yeah, we said as soon as we said that they were playing really well, next thing you know, they have a little oopsie moment.
That was bad. Right there off the looked like that might have been off the right-hand side, and I think that was Kim was responsible for that one. That defense, Moon Won Kim, right there, 1v1 defenses. That ball gets played over the top, right? You have to be able to to time that jump. And it looked like his timing was absolutely off the mark, and it looked like it might have been Godo right there that was able to win that ball, press forward, and it looked like Moon couldn't keep his foot, and Godo was able to play that one into Kassan right there, who, by the way, was able to run free into that space right there to put that shot on the net. So as far as I'm concerned, that might have been, between Kim and Cho right there. That was kind of bad defense.
Yeah, that's what South Korea is known for. Like a lot of people talk about that. Oh, they think they just need to score some goals. Like, no, actually,
that was Cho, by the way.
Defense.
That was the right-sided center back that was actually responsible of marking Godo, and in that back three. So I do apologize. That wasn't Moon right there. That was Cho right there. That was responsible for man marking it. Yeah, and he just absolutely up and failed.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, if they can't do this against the Ivory Coast, how they're going to do this against, well, potentially Denmark. I think Denmark is going to get that spot. It's Denmark and Czech Republic, and knowing Denmark in years past, they're kind of more football savvy than Czech Republic. I mean, Czech Republic hasn't made it to a World Cup since 2006. So I think for that group, it's going to be Czech Republic, or it's going to be Denmark, and here's Mexico. Now, here is going to be no opportunity. And I did send you a DM, Steve, so heads up on that one. Let's just say I know a people or two. That's all I'm going to say. And they're trying to reset it back.
All right, what's this?
And oh no, they just lost the ball. They just completely threw that ball away. Now they have another opportunity, but luckily it's triple team and he loses the ball immediately. Yep, and now here's gonna be could be a shot. Now he is open. Now he's gonna go for it. Here's the shot and saved by Jo Hyun-woo.
Yeah, my stream just went down completely.
Yeah, Jo Hyun-woo had to really reach out for it. Now they're going for the corner kick. I mean, Czech Republic, they're 43rd, and Denmark, they are 21st. And now here's the corner attempt, and now you're just playing small ball on this. Now here's a cross, and now here's header, and that is saved by Jo Hyun-woo. Unbelievable save. If you missed that, I know you did. It was a point-blank header, and Jo Hyun-woo somehow was there. He is known for his reflexes. You got to give him that. And here was that cross. And, that could have ended in so many different ways. That could have easily been a goal. It should have been. And Jo Hyun-woo was just right there at the right time.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me.
Well, all I know is... I know, it's rough. That's the tough thing about these friendlies.
Yeah, it's just for whatever
trying
reason,
to push.
Shut down.
Well, it's a different link that is there for you.
Yeah, I'm trying that one. I'm trying that one.
We're getting close to 40 minutes, and I wonder if there's going to be some stoppage time added. And it wasn't actually an injury timeout. It was actually a water break timeout that they're trying now. I think they're just doing this to prevent cramps. But no, if they do this, that's just going to add towards stoppage time, make the games longer. Yeah, there was a little bit of a jersey pull there. I think that's going to be a foul. Yep, that goes to Ivory Coast. It is 1-0 Ivory Coast, in case anyone is wondering. I mean, South Korea has been playing. They've been mostly outplaying the Ivory Coast, but what matters most, actually, no, in possession, Ivory Coast is now holding the majority possession at around 55%. Is now 40 minutes in.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
And back to the goalkeeper. And as we are getting close to the half, I'll give you each team, and you have to say, well, should they worry about them or not? I'm just going to assume that Denmark is going to be the ones to advance, again, especially against the Czech Republic. So let's say Denmark plays. And I believe that is their first matchup. So should South Korea be worried about Denmark when they play in Mexico?
I wouldn't go that far. I actually think the Czech Republic are a better team. And I think they actually have me personally, I just think the Czech Republic is a little bit better. I wouldn't necessarily shoehorn Denmark into it yet. But yeah, if we're going with Denmark, should South Korea be worried about Denmark? Yes and no. Denmark is a good team, not a great team. Are they capable of pulling off a win like that? Sure, but I actually would think that South Korea is probably going to be a little bit better. So I would probably say no.
South Korea versus Mexico.
I would be worried because Mexico is probably going to be playing in their own country,
Which they are.
playing in Estadio Azteca or even in Guadalajara.
Guadalajara is where they're playing.
Yeah, I would be very worried against Mexico at home, 100%.
South Africa.
I would not be worried about South Africa. South Africa, Bafana they're not even in AFCON. They're not one of AFCON's better teams. So yes, they qualify.
Oh, now here's an opportunity for South Korea. Now here's a shot and off the post again. It hit the post and South Korea just cannot catch a break. And now they're trying to reset. And you know what? Just go for a big shot right there. And now they're trying to do a little through. And now corner kick for South Korea. They had a shot, and it just did not go in. And that was really good moves too. And it was a really good shot, but just cannot make it. And by the way, I am trying to get to Mexico for the World Cup. It would be against Denmark. It's one of the cheaper games. I'm not going to go to Mexico because it's the host nation. I don't want to.
By the way, that was a good through ball down the left hand side. It was a good cut off the wing. Goes far post, and it looked like
here is the kick, and here's the header attempt. Nope, and they're going to try to reset. Here's a shot, and that was stopped by Ivory Coast, and another corner kick attempt. South Korea is at least aggressive.
Mexico versus South Korea down in Guadalajara would be great.
Tickets are topping to 1,000, and I'm going with the ones that are like 200 or less, which they are.
South Korea had 2 chances on that corner kick right there. That was good defense
really
by
did.
the Ivory Coast.
Now they're going for another kick, and now here's another cross, and goalkeeper catches it with his acrobatic moves. And I can't go to the South Africa one because it's day before my grandfather's passing anniversary. So when you try to tinker with having some fun and family matters, we all know which one wins.
Right.
Yeah. So I think Denmark it is. Now I just got to find someone to go with. I don't know if I really plan to go to Mexico by myself either. Now they're trying to reset. We're getting close to the half.
Let's see. Let's see what we have here.
But yeah, for the halftime, I think we'll definitely take an opportunity to talk about our Seattle sports world.
Sure,
it's gonna be out of
bounds. So it looks like yeah. So Turkey beat Romania. And that's for the U.S. That's actually kind of a big one because and then Kosovo beat Slovakia. So Turkey versus Kosovo, and the winner will go to the World Cup. And it looks like let's see, looks like Czechia beat Ireland 4-3 in a shootout. Poland beat Albania. Denmark did beat North Macedonia. And it looks like
Ivory Coast looks like they have a shot. And now here's a crossing attempt that is blocked.
Yeah, so it looks like
3 minutes.
It looks like so it looks like it's Denmark versus Czechia. It's not I don't think that's the Czech Republic. I think
it is Czech Republic. Yeah, Denmark is playing Czech Republic on March 31st. And then
right, so
here's Ivory Coast with a shot. Here's a shot, and that goes in. That's going to be a goal. And now it's 2-0. And that was a beautiful shot by Ivory Coast. And it looks like Ivory Coast is just going to run away with this.
Damn.
I know. What is going on? Absolute embarrassment.
Dude, was that a Dingra that just scored? Yep, that was a Dingra.
Yeah, where does he play for? Tell me about him, please.
He plays for Sunderland. He's one of Sunderland's really good players.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
He's very good. Plays in the Premier League.
Oh, flick of the switch. I wouldn't expect anything less from him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, you can't put that in the goalkeeper. That was just a meltdown of defense. Oh, my goodness. And I know people are going to say, well, it's just a friendly. And I'm like, no, like, this is the time you should, like, buckle down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I remember the red flag I should have caught in 2014. It was when South Korea lost to Ghana 4-0 right before the World Cup. And that should have been the red flag right there.
Yeah, that's funny. Did Steve talk you into watching soccer? No. Joe does this. Joe does this with South Korea, whether it's World Baseball Classic or whether it is the build up and lead up into the World Cup. He's all over South. Yeah, he's all over South Korea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Korean, so that makes sense. I'm wearing a Korean jersey. Now here's Korea with an opportunity. Now here's the cross. And now here's the shot. No, it's going to be stopped by the goalkeeper again.
Wow. Now, the interesting thing is, like, coming into this one, I said this probably does favor South Korea, but, and by the way, like, the Ivory Coast is not a bad team. And that, by the way, South Korea, again, finding good spots to, put shots on net and, credit that keeper right there. He's actually doing a really good job.
Yeah.
He's doing a really good job.
I mean, you got to give it to Africa. They produce really acrobatic goalkeepers. Like, I remember the one from Nigeria in 2010. He was a good one.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the halftime as Ivory Coast is up 2-0. I would say 2-0, but this is football. Oh, boy. And that was in 35 minutes of play and then 45 plus the stoppage time. Man, giving up goals in stoppage time is very frustrating. But now we're going into the half. It's been a while since we have done a show together. Last time we did a show together was Game 2 of the American League Division Series. Actually, no, it was Game 5 of the ALCS, possibly. Oh, they're reminiscing about South Korea's 2002. No, they're not. What was it?
No, didn't we do a off-season show with the Mariners?
Maybe like
we
once.
Did one.
I don't. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, it was like once. It really was.
It was like a long time ago.
It might have been like in January or February.
Maybe.
I can't remember, but yeah, it's been a while.
But yeah, and then while I was really depressed about the Mariners losing after the ALCS, and on top of that, you had Adam Silver going, "Hey, I think we're going to try to go for Europe," and I was like, "Okay, I think this is over. It's not going to happen. I accept it." So that's where I started my 2K Sonics, where I went back in. I went in that time machine, and it was right after Wally Walker fired George Karl and Barry Ackerley allowed it. I was like, nope, I'm buying the team. Here, Ackerley, here is your millions. I'll give you $200 million like Howard Schultz did, because that probably he would have said yes at the time. I went straight to Wally Walker's office and I said, here's a basket, get out. And then Paul Westphal that he hired. Paul Westphal, get out.
Yeah, you cleaned house, man. You cleaned house.
Oh, not only that.
I watched a couple of those streams, and I got to be honest with you, it was actually wildly entertaining. The idea of Dennis Rodman, as a Seattle Supersonic was incredibly entertaining. But the interesting thing, it's been a wild 6 months too, because I do remember when Adam Silver and his NBA cohorts were talking about expanding into Europe and having a European-based NBA, and it's at that stage you're kind of like, all right, well, Seattle at this point has done everything right. There is a new arena, and at the time, it's like, we have the corporate structure and the corporate entity to support said NBA franchise. The pieces are in place for an ownership group. So what more can we do? And it just felt like it was a lost cause.
It could have been over, yeah. And
then all of a sudden, a couple days ago, the NBA Board of Governors approves the exploratory
process of
expansion, right? So now it's Seattle and Las Vegas. And so from that standpoint, it's like it's the first step in getting NBA basketball back to Seattle. And I thought it was encouraging news. And it's funny when you see Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it today, and and all of a sudden you see longtime NBA fans in Seattle like, we're back, and it's like, no, we're not.
No, like, hey, calm down. I even got some buddies in Brazil that follow me. I got fans in Brazil that love the Sonics and Seattle sports, which I did not expect. Yeah, I had the comments going, "Whoa, cowboy, we still have a ways to go." But yes, it's a great step. But going back to, there was more that I did than just clean house in the front office. I also cleaned house with the roster. I traded Gary Payton, Hersey Hawkins, Detlef Schrempf, and Vin Baker for the 99 first-round pick and the 2000 first-round pick each to get in position to possibly draft Steve Francis. And knowing that, and then the trade package I got, there was more. The trade package with Orlando to give Detlef Schrempf also included getting Dominique Wilkins. So I had him starting at small forward. And Shandon Anderson was a player I got in the package in the Hersey Hawkins trade, along with Greg Foster. He was also a throw-in because I need another center, I guess. I flipped Shandon Anderson to the Sacramento Kings for Jerome James, who was a backup center to Vlade Divac. So I started Jerome James, started Dominique Wilkins. And I was like, man, well, the fans are kind of upset right now. I was like, hey, why did you trade everyone? Why'd you trade Gary Payton? He's the icon. I was like, well, he's getting into his 30s. Yeah, he's entering his prime, but I don't want to waste his prime either. So to get more fans in the seats, because fans were pretty much saying, okay, we're not coming back until whenever, I signed Dennis Rodman because I need a clown. I need someone to not only hustle, if he does, but I also need someone to just entertain the crowd with his stupid plays or whatever. And and then I also traded Dominique back to Atlanta to give him a chance to win maybe one more championship, maybe a championship with Atlanta. So I kind of did something nice for him. It was a Christmas present I gave him.
You talking about Dominic Wilkins?
The human highlight film. Oh, no, Dominic was with Orlando in 99. But yes, he was in Europe in 98 where he won a championship with Greece, with a Greek team. So yeah, Dominic Wilkins. I think Christmas time.
He's got to be in his 60s now, doesn't he?
Yeah. But I brought him into the office and I was like, Merry Christmas, Dominique. You're going home to Atlanta. That's what I told him. And he just bawled his eyes out. He's like, he basically said, thank you. So I did nice things for people. And then I at least didn't make Dennis Rodman completely melt down after his divorce with Carmen Electra, which that does still happen in my timeline. He actually did miss a plane and no-showed a game. But then he came back and goes, hey, man, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. And I go, Dennis, you messed up. But here's the thing. Carmen just wasn't worth it. And I said that there's a better future ahead. Just don't mess it up.
Dennis, you can't just not skip practice and show up on WCW wrestling. You just can't do it. Dennis,
which he did in the middle of the 98 finals, didn't he, with Karl Malone?
Yeah, he sure did. Showed
and then we got wrestling. Flick of the switch said big business leaving Seattle, not coming in. Who would want to play 8 to 10 for business hostile environment? Which, even John Schneider came up. But here was the funny thing. So we saw that you probably heard the names of Jonathan Cho, Ari Hoffman, Brandy Cruz. they all first came out and said, hey, this whole income tax could be a problem. And they got absolutely just hammered by social media. They were called fear mongers, Trump supporters. And I'm like, guys, they're just giving us a heads up. They didn't say anything that, oh, it's going to happen.
No, and by the way,
yeah.
It's funny. It's funny when people attack the truth like that, because they're absolutely right. And the funny thing about it is, it's like, I can't remember who did it, but they did a tax breakdown on the yearly salary of a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? Where it's under the new tax system, I guess what they call the millionaire's tax, although they call it an excise tax. It's not. It's an income tax. I think this last year, like if this thing was implemented like now, and it goes into effect now, his $8 million salary, he would end up owing like half of it, essentially like half of it. So he would actually end up like owing like $3.7 million just in taxes on his $8 million tax. And it's like, listen, it's a very big issue, and it's something that that's what kind of surprised me, that Adam Silver and the board of governors actually approved the exploratory. The NBA board of governors unanimously approved it, was because how is that going to look like in the new, I guess you can say, tax environment of Seattle? Because when you look at what's going on in Seattle right now with their communist mayor, and the taxes that she wants to push through with through the city. And then when you look at the state income tax that's going to be implemented, companies have already left, and more big companies are going to leave as well too. And it wouldn't surprise me if United and Delta move their hubs out of Seattle. Starbucks is already leaving, and you're going to have a lot of that corporate infrastructure that sports teams rely on. Let's be perfectly honest, right? Because sports teams in Seattle rely on that corporate infrastructure to selling boxes and some of these other things, on top of naming rights and some of these other things. And all of a sudden, if that disappears, and we're already starting to see an exodus of private citizens, wealthy private citizens leaving for Idaho, Montana, Florida, whatever the case may be, because they don't want any piece of it, it's a little bit of a worry. And especially for, let's move to the future, and let's just say that everything gets approved and Seattle gets an expansion team, and the owner of the Kraken, the chick that owns the Kraken, and OVG partner together. And they partnered together to be the majority owners of a new NBA franchise, and they pay the $7 billion or whatever it takes to be the expansion fee. And all of a sudden, they come online in 2029, 2030. And it's like, okay, cool. And that income tax has already been on the books for 3 years. Like, how are they expected to pay for free agents? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then John Stanton, that's going to give him another excuse to not pay anyone either. So
and there's actually now rumor that Stanton is like the leading candidate to buy the Seahawks. And it's funny to me.
Already denied it. Let's hope he's not.
There you go. Yeah. But what I will say is, it's like, when John Schneider comes out and says, yeah, like this is going to hamper our ability to bring people to the Pacific Northwest, bring players to the Pacific Northwest, because all these players these days have accountants and have very good money management. And they will say, listen, why would you go to Seattle to give up half of your yearly salary? Why? It makes absolutely no sense. It absolutely, like when you think about the fact that housing already is expensive as shit in the Puget Sound area, and you look at sales tax, and you look at some of the things that the day-to-day taxes that actually affect day-to-day life, not just for wealthy folks, but also blue-collar folks as well too. And it's like, if I'm a player, the last thing that I'm going to do is come to Seattle. That also affects the Mariners as well too, because they're still trying to re-sign Logan Gilbert. They're trying to re-sign
George Kirby,
and they're trying to convince these players to stay. And it's like, dude, and even if you're making guaranteed money, let's just throw out a number. Let's just say that George Kirby's or Logan Gilbert's gonna get $150 million over 6. It's like, dude, you're making $25 million a year, but a good 35-40% of that shit is going to income tax. It's like, dude, why would you do that to yourself? Why would it's going to have such a profound impact on the sporting community in Seattle, to a point where it's like, I don't understand the long-term health. Like I can't envision what that's going to look like 20 years down the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I brought Ari Hoffman to the show, because he was getting so much flack. I was like, you know what? I'm willing to take the risk, because I do have a lot of connections within the Sonics fan base, which of course, unfortunately, most of them are like, nah, it's just a nothing burger. We're fine. He's like, you know what? Fine. I'll bring him in, and I want to hear what he says, because I have, because maybe you saw that Facebook page, Bring Back Our Sonics. The community in that Facebook page, it's about 50-50 on what people think about the income tax. And actually, if not, it actually might be 60-40 for people that are against the income tax. So I thought it made sense for me to do it, because the Sonics fan base in politics, they're actually more split than people want to admit. So I brought him in, and the most key thing he said was, people were upset at me for pulling public records in from the governor's office, and it did specifically say, basically Adam Silver saying, hey, this could actually be a concern. But the thing too is, I don't think that Seattle or the NBA is necessarily worried about the income tax. I think they're worried about the volatility of the politicians, which they've already proven. We had Frank Chop basically telling David Stern to go, you know where.
Essentially, essentially.
And we had the city of Seattle treating Chris Hansen like absolute garbage. Now, it doesn't really matter, because Chris Hansen is hated by the NBA anyway with his Sacramento efforts. But that's what Ari Hoffman said. I mean, and I believe it. He actually sent me the documents too. Like, so I believe him.
But it's also, Greg Nichols strong arming Clay Bennett for $35 million to pay off, the bonds on Key Arena. It's like, that doesn't endear yourself to a private entity like the NBA. But what I will say is, you have to worry about the political climate here. They're in Seattle 100%, because for whatever reason, they feel like Seattle is, Seattle is running the entire state, where it's like, that's not an accurate representation of the entire state. But what I will say is, like, one of the things that concerns me is the fact that you're going to see a mass exodus of businesses out of Seattle, and stores are going to close. Grocery stores are going to close. You're going to see a lot of retail shops, a lot of restaurants. You're going to see a lot of places go under, because quite frankly, it's the biggest problem with that is it really is anti-business. And if you are somebody that is going to put down anywhere between $7 to $12 billion in order to bring a massive sports franchise, you're looking for ways for an ROI, a return on investment. You don't do this unless you're doing it because you understand exactly what that return on investment is, because it's all about total franchise valuation, because eventually you're going to sell that thing. And you're going to walk away with billions upon billions of dollars, and all that's great. But if you're in an area that completely competes against the reasons of which you're trying to make money, it makes it really hard for you to. It makes it incredibly hard for you to maintain that. But I'll also say this as well too. Not only is it anti-business, but when you look at the fact that you're going to be charging anywhere between $75 to $150, $300 a ticket for somebody to come and watch you play. And middle class sports fans of Seattle are already struggling to keep the lights on. That's going to be awfully hard to sell a product in that kind of environment. That's my concern as well too.
It is, and but what I have noticed, and there's one little bright side out of this. Bob Ferguson still hasn't signed the bill, and I wonder if he's holding off until we get the team, because he didn't sign off for the vote.
I heard the reason why he's not doing it is because there's going to be a certain time frame where those that are against it can't form a referendum against it. That's what I heard. The reason why he's not signing it is because he's waiting for a certain time frame where nobody can challenge it.
Oh, even with petitions, right? And
correct.
Yeah,
correct.
that's just man. And then
it's dirty.
The only hope that we would have for Washington citizens is that now that South Korea is playing, the only hope that they may have is if Supreme Court is on our side. But the other sketchy thing is Bob Ferguson just appointed someone within the Supreme Court. So that could be the deciding vote as we're at corner kick right now.
I left Michigan.
Now here's going to be the kick. Now here is you think in Washington. And now they're trying to go for a cross. And now here's a possible header. And it is it's out. Now they're going to go goal kick. Yeah, I think you said you left for Michigan.
Yeah, I left for Michigan in 2021 post lockdowns. And it was the manner in which they handled the lockdowns, which absolutely disgusted me. But the writing was on the wall because even then they had massive.
Now here's going to be a corner, and now it is going out. Nice belt job.
Yeah, sorry. They at that point in time they were still running deficits to the point where instead of cutting back and stopping spending, they were continuing to tax things. And I was having a discussion then. It's like we're going to be very close. So they're going to try to pass an income tax. And sure enough, 4 years later, they did. The interesting thing is in Michigan, there is a state income tax, but for the last 25 years, it's held at 4%. And it is not something that any of the legislators here are looking to increase because we also have city taxes as well, too, which is only at I think it's only like at 0.9%, close to 1%. Property taxes are insanely low here. And I will say that even so, that it is not something that it affects your day-to-day life. It's interesting being in a state with a state income tax. But what I will say is that, there is enough checks and balances in the state of Michigan. There's equal representation to the point where not one side can go completely ham sandwich on identity politics to the point where it's like you're looking at it to the point where people are starting to leave. And I just really hope that my fellow old school Washingtonians are looking at this, and it's like, as much as I want to stay here, it probably is going to be beneficial for my family to leave. I left, and it was the best thing that I ever did.
Yeah, and I wonder, and the only reason I'm still staying in Washington is if there's not much activity going on with the South Korea match. If it was World Cup, then everything would be hyper focused. Sure. But we're talking about a friendly that South Korea is pretty much at lost.
We're pushing the 48th minute here, and they're down 2-0 still.
And now here's an action opportunity, and nope, nothing happening for South Korea.
I would like to see how. I already have a feeling. I already know how it's going to be implemented, and that's not. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be hell on wheels. But what's going to end up happening when the entire that's the thing. It's a millionaire's tax on people that net $1 million gross. And what's interesting about this is it's like even small business owners that have multiple restaurants or a plumber that has multiple contracts, like making $1 million this year in this climate is really not hard to do, especially if you're a very good somebody that's savvy in business as a small business owner. It's like, what happens then? You're going to see even some of those businesses pick up shop. But what happens when there's not enough, millionaires to tax? Like it's going to end up on the middle class. And I really fear for,
and I see so many people on Facebook on both sides. At least one side's like, oh, come on. It's the millionaire. That's fine. I'm like, but this is going to open Pandora's box. I have people that per se that they didn't necessarily vote Republican. They voted Democrat. And they're passionate about it, but even then they go, no.
This is not what we voted for.
No. And now, looks like I thought there was a shot.
This is what and it's funny. I find it funny that they're like, well, they have to pay their fair share, and it's like, stop the crap. What they're doing is completely unconstitutional, and it goes exactly against the framework of what the state constitution was all about. And the reality is like it's going to trickle down to the working class. And if the working class isn't already taxed to death enough, like put it in like common sense terms, like if you have $1, for every dollar that every dollar that you earn, up to like 65 cents per every dollar is going to be taken out for taxes. And it's like, dude, how is anybody going to live, especially with rents being so high? Housing
rent
is so
is high.
It's like, dude, you're like, you're going to see a lot of debt.
Now here's a kick and caught.
And you're going to see a lot of working poor living out of their cars. And it's like, it's like, I fear for what Seattle and Washington and Western Washington is going to look like 15 years from now.
If I were anyone that lives in Washington, the only reason why I'm staying is because of family and friends. But to some, that can only do so much. Like, not everyone's in the position that I am. Not that I'm trying to speak in privileges, which I do. I do admit it. But I also think of those that there are people in Washington, and I see the community. They don't exactly have the stability that you and I may have. There are some that some have nothing, and they can't afford it. Like, I work in a field where I tried helping this guy find an apartment. He was well above minimum wage, still couldn't help him, still couldn't work. It still didn't work for a studio. He couldn't get the studio.
Right. It's insanely embarrassing. What I will say is that, yeah, it was tough, man. When I made the decision to leave, it was tough. Now, I was fortunate because my sister and my dad live in Michigan, so I do have some family, and I'm grateful for that. But to leave my Washington family, which was tough, my ex and my kids, and then also my friends and family, it was tough, man. It was really tough, man. But that being said, I also knew what was waiting on the other side. And I was able to buy a house out here because the housing market reflects the wage. The cost of living out here reflects the wages. And so I already knew
young people there.
And it's amazing. It's amazing out here. But what I will say is I even knew, like, if things went wrong for whatever reason, I knew for a fact that I could, even if I needed to, like if I had to work at McDonald's, I would still be able to pay my mortgage. You get what I'm saying?
Yep, it's like, here's a shot and it's out of bounds.
Like if worst comes to worst, I would still be able to keep a roof over my head. And if I had to deliver pizza or do DoorDash to supplement my income, I still would be able to do that, and I would still be okay. And I did that for 3 years. My first 3 years here, I had to work 2 jobs. But that being said, it's like, that is that is something that I'm not going to get into the whole certain things should be human rights. It's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But that being said, it's like when it comes to the day-to-day affordability, one of the things that I will say, and even Michigan being a blue state, at least they do not tax their citizens to death.
And here, there's a chance. And now here's going to be a cross and saved by the goalkeeper. He's having a really good game. Got to give him credit on that one.
I would like to see South Korea here get one on the board within the next 10 minutes, because as of right now, it feels like South Korea, this game is lost. But that being said, a goal can turn around their fortunes, and they can also, a goal would motivate this team, and they would be right back.
But I think that's the criticism that I have with Hong. He usually doesn't take these games seriously, especially on a team like Ivory Coast. Now you said they're one of the top teams, but even then, compared to the world, and also South Korea has struggles against African teams for whatever reason. They've only won. They've won like one game against an African nation in the World Cup. The other two, they played Algeria. Right. Oh, they tied Nigeria, but they lost to Algeria 4-2, and they lost to Ghana 3-2. I was scared of Ghana, and yet somehow Ghana still didn't get out of that round.
It looks like Sonny's coming on right now.
Yeah, because they need something. They got to make something happen. We're at 55 minutes now.
It's going to be interesting to see where they put Sonny at.
I'm also considering doing the game on Tuesday as well. The Tuesday South Korea match against they're going to play against Austria, the country of the sound of music.
I think that that's going to be a pretty interesting game. What I don't like about the fact that you mentioned just a second ago that South Korea doesn't necessarily take these friendlies serious, and it's like, well, you should. You know what I mean? You absolutely should, because one of the things that any team should want heading into the World Cup is to be on good form, to actually have that continuity and that rhythm within that starting 11, and essentially to be firing on all cylinders.
Oh no, here is the honey shot. Now here's the cross, and and that was deflected away, and that's going to be a corner.
You want to at least have a statement win going into it. You know what I mean?
I mean, look at 1980. Kurt Russell, Herb Brooks, when the USA was playing a friendly tour in Europe. I think it was against Norway. USA tied, and then Herb Brooks made them practice after the game. He made them do drills until like midnight.
That was like what, against Finland, wasn't it?
No, Norway.
There you go.
And the movie made it more iconic with the whole again. Yeah. And the craziest thing, and the very next, I heard it actually ended. I played for the United States of America.
United States of America. That was.
I heard the actual ending of that was because he chucked his hockey stick and it broke, and then Herb Brooks like, okay, you can go home now. You get the message. But then the very next day, USA won 9-0 the next day.
Yeah.
He really whipped those boys into shape.
I think it was like the 2 weeks before the opening of the 80 Lake Placid Olympics. They played the Soviet Union at Madison Square Garden and were absolutely demolished.
10-3 to the point that Jim Craig almost lost his job.
Yeah, so... And what was interesting is they did this new documentary on Netflix recently about the 1980.
South Korea's got their forces. They got Lee Gang-in and they got Son coming in. So maybe this could be a course of a turnaround. I would expect at least a goal out of that when you're putting those guys in.
Well, they said that loss was pivotal for them because they got to actually see the Soviets up close, and they got to see exactly why they're so successful. And so because of that loss coming into it, they, coming into that tournament at the Olympics, they, coming into that match against the Soviet Union, they weren't afraid anymore. You know what I mean? And that's why, they were able to take it to them. And, when you see somebody in that type of atmosphere and you lose that badly, usually the next go around, you usually have a better understanding, and sure enough, they handle their business.
Yeah, and we're also happy that USA was able to pull the upset on Canada for the gold medal. That one was also a very sweet moment. And now here is Jack Hughes. By the way, I play fantasy hockey, and I'm on the verge of heading to the semifinals again.
So
for the second straight season.
Hughes, I watched that gold medal match on the replay, and Jack Hughes, like post game, was talking about this is the greatest country in the world, that type stuff. He took a lot of shit for it, but what I will say is that was amazing seeing both the U.S. women and men's beat Canada for the gold. I can't remember that ever happening before, and I was like, God damn it! Did we just dominate the hockey tournament, the Olympics, both of them? Both the men's and I was like, woo!
That's the thing about Jack Hughes. Like he doesn't deserve that kind of backlash. But here's my thing: if someone wants to say, "Yay, I love America," great. If you want to say, "Oh no, America stinks," go ahead. It's a free country. You can say whatever you want. But of course, there's also the freedom to criticize too. That's also part of the freedom of speech.
Sure. But that being said, what's wrong with somebody that's proud to be American saying how much he loves the country of his origin?
I know. And then they're saying
that should be celebrated, not booed.
Yeah, and
You know what I mean?
and they would have no problems with other people from other countries saying, "Oh, I love my country, even if it's dirt poor."
Yeah.
People in South
Congratulations, man, you
America,
should.
they are not
should.
exactly rich, but they love their country. Like Colombians, they love their country. Brazil, they love their country, even with their beef with the politicians, which by the way, they do have a huge political divide.
And to be able to represent your country on an international level, whether it's the Olympic hockey tournament, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's in the Olympics for whatever event, you should be proud, because you're one of very few that actually get to don the stars and bars in those type of competitions. And so it's a massive responsibility to represent your country and do it well. When you win it, it should be a celebrated moment. It should be a celebrated moment.
Well, look at Julio Rodriguez. He got flack for just saying, "Oh yeah, I'd rather win the World Baseball Classic over the World Series, but I love the Mariners." He got flack for that, and I had to go out of my way to defend him. And Julio's not even my favorite player. He is far from being my favorite player on the team. But I was like, but this is a world stage, and for Dominican Republic, it's a big deal. I know for the Americans, for World Baseball Classic, maybe not so much, but Dominican Republic, it's everything to them.
Correct, man. That's their sport, and it's every kid's dream to represent their country on an international stage. And I didn't have a problem with what Julio said.
I was not offended.
Some people will say that his priorities are askew, and it's like, I guarantee you that as soon as he steps into in a Mariners jersey,
here's a corner. He wants to, but oh no! And he has to. No, it's gonna be 3-0. Oh my gosh!
Oh, it's over, folks. It's over.
That's all, folks.
So
this is an absolute humiliation. I think this is it, man.
Oh, that is absolute terrible defending. You get the initial save, and then Godo just stays with the ball, and there is no attempt to try to. Poke the ball away and clear it. They just let Godo just get right back on the ball. Unbelievable. That's terrible defending from South Korea.
I don't want to say
That's all, folks.
Oh my gosh. And that was a good save by Jo Hyun-woo too. That was not even on him. It was just atrocious defending. And there's really nothing that Joe could have done either. Like everyone was just standing there.
You actually have 4 South Korea defenders. So the header goes in, and you have Godo right there. So there's the initial shot by Guisard. And then you have 2 defenders. You have Sonny, and then you also have number 26. And there is no close down on the ball at all. And he just allows Godo to get on the ball and walk in and score that goal. That is absolute terrible defending.
I'm just going to say this. As long as Hong Myung-bo gets fired after this, then I'm okay with the loss. So at this point, I'm cheering for Ivory Coast to score 10 goals just to say, okay, Hong, you're fired. Get out of here. Which he should have never been hired in the first place. Did they forget about his atrocious coaching in the Brazil World Cup?
Can I ask you a question real quick? And I'm curious to know what your answer is here. Like, because I don't know what style of coaching is acceptable for the Korean people. Because I know that the Japanese are deferential people. They're very disciplined. And so maybe they would be accepting of a disciplinarian type of coach that is very detail oriented and right. I don't know what that is for, the Korean player. Like, what do they respond more? Do they appreciate more of the a player's coach that is lets everything be loose, they joke, they have fun, and as long as they show up and put a good 90 in, that's okay? Or is it more like they absolutely have to have that rigid disciplinarian in place for them? They don't
have discipline as much as they used to back then. Like you're
saying like a rigid disciplinarian would be good for the squad.
Oh no, quite. Goose Hiddink was that guy. Oh, and here's a chance for Korea, and he tried to flop it, and yeah, he couldn't sell that flop good enough to get the ref to say, okay, penalty. Now these flops are just getting too obvious now. Like, at least back then, the flop was at least sellable and artistic, but now that everyone's doing it, now you can tell which one's obvious or not. No, but here's what happened. Yeah. So Goose Hiddink, when he coached South Korea 2002, after they upsetted Portugal in the group stage to make it to the round of 16, South Korea was trying to, the team was trying to throw a party, and then Goose Hiddink immediately slammed the door open going, what are you guys doing? Why are you no, he's like, no, party's over, boys.
Yeah.
Even made him throw away all of his food.
Yeah, you guys haven't won anything.
Yeah, I think he made everyone throw away their drinks. Maybe the food he didn't really care about, but the drinking, oh yeah, he probably took one and go, Chuck. Now here's a cross. Nope, nothing happening.
Yeah, this is actually a little surprising that South Korea has.
Oh no, here's another opportunity. Probably going to be 4-0. Honestly, I'm cheering for Ivory Coast. I want them to score 6 goals just so they can fire Hong Myung-bo because he shouldn't have been hired. I almost rather have Jurgen Klinsmann, and he's not a good coach either.
Well, would the Korean Football Association sack a manager this close to a World Cup?
I mean, Spain sacked a manager 2 days before a World Cup before. I think that was 2018 or 2022.
Yeah, but that's Spain, though. That's Spain, though.
No, right? But they.
Would Korea have the balls to do that this close to the World Cup?
No, the KFA won't, because the problem with Korea, they say, here's a thing that Korea practices in their culture. They practice favoritism and selective accountability. So they will set discipline on someone they think is inferior, but to someone that has like a big name, big status, oh, he's 100% protected. That's what I learned in the Korean culture, especially growing up at church. And that's probably why you rarely ever see me associate with Koreans, because of the culture. Now, don't get me wrong. The only reason I'm still supporting Korea is it's for my family. That's really it. But if I did not have a strong family like I do, I wouldn't even care about them. I'd probably be Team USA or maybe even Team Mexico. Maybe Brazil.
I will never be Team Mexico, unfortunately.
Well, that's what Landon Donovan tried. He tried to say support Mexico, and we all know where that came from. That was because Jurgen Klinsmann sacked him for the World Cup. And now here's another chance for Ivory Coast.
Yes and no. Yes and no. That's a different story altogether. But I will say that being somebody that has supported the U.S. men's national team since like 89, 90, Mexico is a rival, and I will never support Mexico, even in World Cups where we have gone out early and Mexico is still in. I never rooted for Mexico. As a matter of fact, I rooted hard against Mexico. I have a hard time even rooting for Canada. So from that standpoint,
no, don't make me root for. Do not make me. They couldn't pay me to cheer for Canada. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So from that standpoint, it's like, that rivalry, that rivalry is ingrained into me, and that's the thing. It's like a guy like Landon Donovan who, grew up with Mexican folks, and he is the type of guy that roots for CONCACAF nations outside of the US because, it's good for the region, all that other stuff. And it's like, the only reason why he did that commercial is he was paid handsomely. He was paid unbelievably well for that commercial.
Oh, so that's what it was. Oh, but Donovan's efforts will never be forgotten from the 2010 World Cup and also the 2002 World Cup when he was the youth player of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Donovan's iconic goal against Algeria. I mean, that is one of the moments.
Now, while Donovan does have those moments, Clint Dempsey was the better player.
Well, I'll never forget the call. It goes, Landon Donovan.
As you can see on my wall, there's not a Donovan shirt on my wall.
You got Dempsey.
I do have two Clint shirts on my wall.
Well, you'll never forget the iconic call of, and Dempsey has been denied again, and Donovan has scored! Oh, can you believe it? Go, USA! Certainly through!
Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I can believe it.
Ian Dark was also part of South Korea's victory against Italy, too. So Ian Dark has been quite a few moments. He's actually my favorite play-by-play personality. Either him or Derek Ray. Derek Ray likes doing all the South Korea games. Ian Dark, of course, I would think they're going to appoint him to do all the United States games, and they should.
Maybe. We'll see.
20 minutes left, and I'm literally cheering for Ivory Coast to score because I just want it to be so bad to get Hong fired. But then again, who are you going to find with only, 3 months left, 2 months left until the World Cup?
There's got to be a coach somewhere in the K League that is ready to step up to the international level.
No, they had one. They had one in the name of Pak Sung-ho. No. Wait, what was it? I gotta look him up. South Korea's coach, Vietnam. Pak Hang-seo. He was one of the assistants for Goose Hiddink, and South Korea threw him away like trash, and then he ended up at least somewhat turning around the Vietnam program.
Okay.
So South Korea, that's the thing. Favoritism, as long as you are well connected with the corrupts, you get whatever you want. And even if you're competent, this goes back to thousands of years of Korean history where there was that one little guy that was like, hey, I think we should do this to better our country. And then they basically sent the firing squad to get him killed. And then they lose all their land to China because of incompetence. The whole thing about Japan invading South Korea, that was because of the corruption of the Korean government. It wasn't because Japan was a bunch of warlords, because someone made a deal with the Japanese Empire to basically open the borders and say, okay, yeah, you can come in and take over our country and cause generations worth of trauma to our children.
That's hardcore,
most of South Korea's
that's hardcore.
Most of South Korea's wrongdoings is self-inflicted, and they're all easily preventable. And people say that, yeah, but South Korea has no resources, and they're a top 15 economy. They should be a top 5 economy. And now here's a cross. Nope.
The only thing I know about South Korea is that it is the plastic surgery capital of South Asia. I read that somewhere, that there's more plastic surgery in young girls than anywhere else in Asia. I was like,
thank you, man.
I was astounded. I was like, they say that like five or 6 out of every 10 young girls between the ages of like 16 and 18 will have plastic surgery.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
There's things I see. Man, I think if this video goes anywhere, which I don't think it will, that's why I'm saying everything. Maybe it will 10 years from now. They're like, oh man, this guy betrayed his own country by criticizing things about the culture. He's a racist. I'm like, but I'm Korean. But I've had Koreans try that on me before. They try to say I'm this. I'm like, but I'm Korean. They go, oh, never mind.
But I'm Korean.
I can say it. I have the license. Now, if I was anyone else, then sure, say whatever you please. But it's actually happened before.
How did Korea do in the World Baseball Classic? How did they do?
Quarterfinals, only to get mercy ruled by Dominican Republic 10-0. Austin Wells 3-run home run to end it.
Wow, Austin Wells.
But Korea didn't really go in with a very winning strategy. They went with Hyunjin Ryu as the coach when he's like 40, or pitcher as he's like 40 years old, going up against these Dominican Republic kids, like all perennial all-stars. When you have Julio as their 7th player, that says it all. Now Son's trying to score, and nope. This game has been really boring, obviously. Oh, now here's nope. Hong's really got to go.
That's funny. Nope.
Just like in the Mariners game, swinging a fly ball at foul.
Yeah, swinging a fly ball. No. What was it?
So the Mariners lost on opening day. Apparently,
Yes.
I was reading it, and apparently they hit 4 solo home runs and lost.
Live and die by the home run. And all of their runs have been accounted by home runs.
And then they won yesterday. I think they won yesterday, didn't they?
Also on home runs and no singles. They have yet to hit a single to this day. Cal Raleigh's also 0 for 7. All strikeouts. Now here's a shot off the post again. Off the post. I'm not saying that if you just, it would be 3-3 because each goal changes things. But come on, man. Hit something.
They did a really good job of working that to a very good shooting spot outside the 18 and just dinks right off the post, man. It's like, man,
I just want.
That's the third time Korea has dinged one off the post.
Yeah, they had really good shots. It's just they're unlucky, but their defense is also raising that unluckiness to themselves. No, as you can tell, like I'm someone that loves Korea only because of the family, but I'm one of the more critical people against Korea.
Hashtag critical Korean.
I'm very critical. Oh yeah, remember, as much as I don't really have much of a relationship with the Mariners content creators, that goes the same with South Korean content creators too. They're also basically the Mariners content creators. They're like the same thing. But yet for the Sonics, when I told them like, hey, I'm having Ari Hoffman on my show, just to give you a heads up because we talked to each other, they're like, oh, okay, whatever. I don't agree with you. I don't like it, but do you, man?
No, it's funny because I find the Mariner content creators I find them to be very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Opinionated. Very much. And nope.
And it's it's funny because I work with a lot of Spurs content creators, and all of them are down to earth, man. All of them. Like if I want to bring in somebody that's insanely popular, they usually say yes.
Oh yeah, the Mariners people, it's really hard to.
They don't care about how many subs you have, or they just want to have a conversation, right? And the funny thing about it is, and especially in the English soccer culture where they don't necessarily like Americans, but that being said, they'll have a conversation with you because they love the club, right? And what's funny about it is, then you look at Mariner content creators and they're just very pretentious. They're very egotistical. They'll think that their opinion is the only thing that matters. And if you want to try to get them on to have a conversation, they're like, well, how many subs you got? Like, what the fuck does it matter? Like, why does it matter? Let's just have a conversation. Let's just have some fun. No, that's not going to work.
Same thing with Korean content creators. They're the same thing too.
Or they're dudes like Chris Schallenberger.
Hey, that's... Here's the thing.
I do not give one damn about that dude. He is literally a piece of shit. So you know that too, and I know it, and I know you're trying to be deferential, and you're not trying to. And I respect that. I 100% respect that. I'll just say that. I'll just say it. I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but he's a piece of shit. You and I both know that he is.
Well, you know which part of the show is going to get trimmed. Because here's the thing. It's only because if you've heard of the Norbcam, I didn't jump onto the show, but I jumped into the chat when the Husky boy, that's his name, he was on the show, but then I started firing away some comments, and then he kind of realized, like, oh, Rooftop and I are actually not that much different. We even had the same thing in common about how we approached the movie La La Land, and where we both said we respected the ending for the same exact reason. And I think that's where he went, okay, fine. I'll cut Rooftop some slack. Because we did kind of go back and forth all over the income tax. But then...
What's La La Land?
Oh, the Ryan Gosling movie with Emma something.
Oh, here we go. Emma Stone.
Emma Stone. That was the movie that one of my exes, she dragged me into that movie. And I was like, I actually liked it because it wasn't like a typical Disney Hollywood ending. It actually was realistic. So I did respect that. And then
It doesn't look that. I don't think I'll.
I know, but the Husky guy was like, "Oh, okay. We actually have something in common. We're not like I think our relationship with the future is basically be like a Batman and Joker relationship, where
Sonda Dealers is asking, are they going to start working on getting stuff set up for the 2 new NBA teams in Seattle, Las Vegas? Yeah.
That's what they're working on. Samantha Holloway, the leader of the Kraken group. I mean, and she has a lot of NBA connections because her father, David Bonderman, was the minority owner of the Celtics, and that's kind of how.
Well, but they also
Chris Hansen.
Well, but also, they're also partners with OVG, who's bankrolled by MSG. And of course, if anybody knows what it's going to take to get an expansion team, it's going to be those guys. So I would probably assume that the ownership group is going to be surrounded by Samantha Holloway and OVG. That's what I would probably assume.
They already bought majority stake in Climate Pledge Arena. So they are going they're going to be the front runners of this whole thing. Like, Chris Hansen, I just can't see it. I think he just wants to sit on that land. That's really about it.
I wonder though, because I was reading that what the NBA really want is, like minority owners. They want like 10 minority owners, within that ownership group, and I think it's like 100 million each or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure Chris Hansen doesn't have a problem paying that up, but I think he still has that personal. He may have that personal grudge that just didn't work out for him, so he probably doesn't want to entertain something that beat him to it.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like the ideal NBA ownership group would be like a board of minority owners, and I think how they broke it down was like 10 minority owners paying like 100 million each, which would give you $1 billion of investment on top of the majority owners that would probably end up, owning, a good 80% of it, something like that. But, it's going to be interesting to see because, you know how these things work, right? So, it's not just about
here's an no opportunity. Oops.
You know how this works because it's not about the $7 billion that you need for an expansion fee, but you need like double or triple that for operating expenses and things
operating
like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like,
it doesn't guarantee anything.
One person doesn't have $21 billion, right? No. So this is going to be a consortium
group thing. And now here is the corner, and they are nothing's happening.
As we are in the 82nd and a half minute here with the Ivory Coast dominating South Korea. By the way, I was actually quite surprised. Where are they, by the way, where in Korea, where in Seoul is this match being taken place? Is this at the Gyeongju?
No, I think this is in England.
Oh, okay.
Because if it was South Korea, it's evening by now.
I was going to say, because I thought maybe this might be.
Here's a shot. And that was over the head. Like, here's the thing. Korea does not have bad shots. They have talented scorers. They just have absolutely no defense. That's what's killing their momentum. And that's what South Korea has been known for. They have no defense because they never invest in their defense ever. And now here's going for the kick. And nope, that's going to be away. I've been definitely doing a lot more ranting about Korea than actually covering the game, unfortunately. And that should be a foul. Yep, and that should be going that way towards the scoring. And
they're playing it. Okay, they're playing in Milton Keynes. Okay, they're playing in England. Yeah.
Yeah, World Cup is not gonna be fun for me. Like, don't get me wrong, I still want to go to Mexico. It's all about the experience, but at the same time,
are you doing any live streaming for South Korea in the World Cup?
Yep, with the exception of the game that I'm hopefully will be in Mexico. I probably won't live stream that one because I just want to experience it
in Mexico.
And I definitely want to do all the United States games too. And now here could be a shot. And now here's the shot attempt, and that was way off.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of live streaming for the U.S. men's national team. As a matter of fact, we have one coming up today against Belgium, which is going to be live streamed here on my channel. But I expect one of the things that I don't like is the fact that, you mentioned it earlier, that, they don't necessarily take these friendlies too seriously. And it's like, it's incredibly hard for a team to go from that to intentionally laser focused in when it comes to tournament time, because they've been so lax when it comes to their opposition in the lead up in the run up. Right. So you wonder whether or not this is going to have an effect on South Korea come tournament time, because it's hard to go from 0 to 100.
That's what they always try. They always try to snap their fingers, but it just never works. Like, because I think the moment Hong Myung-bol was hired, I said, yep, we're done. And now here's going to be the cross, and nope, Ivory Coast is just heavily defending it well.
Like, do you think, by the way, let me ask you a question real quick. And by the way, that picture of 2 hours ago, RoofTopSports had a picture of a Sonics player saying, "Who am I?" And I believe that is number 50. I think that is Irvin Johnson. I could be wrong.
He left Seattle. Yes, it was Irvin Johnson. He left Seattle to take a big contract in Denver. And honestly, in retrospect, I think maybe Wally Walker should have tried to keep him, because it probably would have been better off than Jim McIlvaine. But better yet, they should have extended Sean Kemp in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a reason why. There's a reason why in my timeline that Wally Walker doesn't have a job anymore. And there's a reason no one ever hired him after that, because of what he did to the Sonics.
Yeah. So I read something which I found kind of interesting, whereas somebody was asking why is Kevin Durant held on for this long, and somebody chimed in and says well, do you think he's waiting for the Sonics to come back online so he can sign a 1-year deal and retire back with the Sonics? Because
I think that's what he wants to do. He does have an opt-out clause to get out of Houston, so it is very possible. And my prediction for that expansion season, I think the Sonics are going to... I think the Sonics season is going to be similar to the Lakers season on Kobe's last season. So they're probably going to be a 15-win team probably, but they don't really care because they're just happy a team is back and Kevin Durant is just having his retirement tour. I think that's what it's going to be. And they get the number 1 pick.
If I remember correctly, Kevin Durant absolutely loved playing in Seattle.
He did.
And he was not really too happy to have to relocate down to Oklahoma City. That would be a very full circle moment for the Seattle SuperSonics to have Kevin Durant do a victory lap, a final farewell tour in a Sonic uniform. I think that would be
and let's sign Russell Westbrook just for craps and giggles. But the thing is, I think they still hate each other after what happened when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma.
So do you think that the Sonics in their first season back will go retro? No. Retro uniforms like essentially that uniform that you had right there with Irvin Johnson with the road green. You think they're going to go with that style?
I think they're going to go with that style, but they're going to totally just try to quote beef it up when everyone's probably going to say, nah, just keep it the way it was. But they have to keep up with the modernity, whatever, and pander to the Generation Z and Alphas, but not people like us.
I think what they're going to do is what most teams have done, which is when they go back to their retro logos and colors, what they'll do is they'll go retro, but they'll modernize it, right? Like something like what the Milwaukee Brewers did. They went back to the old MB logo, but they updated with the same colors, but a better look.
I want them to do the logo based on the 79 logo. As much as I love the 90s one, I think the 90s one should stay as its authentic self. Just leave it as is. Now use it for throwback nights once in a while. I'll totally get behind that. But for their logo, just modernize.
The only thing I liked about the from 96 to 99, I hated with the Space Needle with the basketball that formed the eye. I hated that.
Here's another opportunity for Ivory Coast. Nope. Not this time.
But I like the colors involved. I like the red and the orange. But
and Ivory Coast still has the ball. I think they're going to try to score one more, and I really hope they do. Like, I hope this just gets. And here's the thing: North Koreans are going to laugh at this because North Korea in the 2010 World Cup, they lost 3-0 to Ivory Coast. And if Ivory Coast scores one more, they'll say, ha, we played better than you back in 2010, and we had to play a broken Didier Drogba. They're really going to taunt. I think Kim Jong-un is going to really taunt South Korea about that. I actually hope he does.
That's funny.
And Kim Jong-un's a huge sports fan. I mean, Dennis Rodman. So there's going to be an event tomorrow in Washington State Fair. I'll have a chance to meet Dennis Rodman. He's going to be there. And I think the first question I'm going to ask, do you think you should have been the 96 Finals MVP with all those rebounds, getting Sean Kemp kicked out, Frank Burkowski? And he's probably going to give I don't know what he'll say. And maybe if I have time, I'll tell him that in my 2K world, I have you on the Sonics. And you got like 2 blocks a game. He actually did get 2 blocks a game on my team. He didn't get the rebounds because he's old, but he got 2 blocks. He was a good defensive player. And we are about 2 minutes away. And honestly, South Korea didn't really give me anything to put a YouTube short on. Or maybe I should and say, oh, Ivory Coast just scored. Okay, fire Hong Myung-bo. Just to make fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's pretty much just garbage time at this point. And now here is Son. He's getting bottled up. I mean, Son really does not really have any protection. Now here is a shot and over the head and over the crossbar. And this is pretty much going to be a foregone conclusion. But either way, Steve, it was still a lot of fun. It was definitely worth sacrificing at least an hour or 2 of sleep. Because even if I woke up at the same time and just slept in, I would have had sleep paralysis anyway. So sometimes I don't like to snooze too much because I actually do get sleep paralysis. Oh, we got Tony here. And shout out to Tony. Tony made history with my brand. He is now my first subscriber to my Patreon page.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a step. And now we got Egang in. What has he got? I think this is probably going to be the last play of the game, possibly. Right. And nice pass. They should at least score. Now here's Egang in. I would think for the Austria game, they're going to put in their more 100% and all their starters. And here comes Ivory Coast. They're going to try to drive it up. And now here is going to could be a shot. And here's a shot. And that is a goal. And that is going to be a goal for Ivory Coast. And you know what? As long as Hong Myung-bo, the coach of Korea, gets fired, it is all worth it. Thank you, Ivory Coast. I'll be thanking you later. Please get Hong Myung-bo fired.
Oh, good Lord, man. They got smashed. Singo unmarked, and he just puts it into the back. Jesus Christ. That was ugly. Oh, that was ugly.
The fact that I'm cheering for Ivory Coast to keep scoring says a lot.
4-0. 4-0.
4-0 Ivory Coast, man. This was an unexpected beatdown. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I want them to score even just one more, just to say, okay, Hong, you're gone, get out. And I don't care if it's just 2 months. You know what? If there's a good coach, it's a good coach. Maybe 2 months is all he needs. Even bring back Goose Hiddink if you have to. And he's like old and yeah, he's kind of enjoying retirement. By the way, Goose Hiddink had to go through a lot of red tape on South Korean Football Association, by the way. Like, Ji-sung Park almost did not play in the 2002 World Cup. Korea was heavily against it, and Goose Hiddink was like, nope, I'm playing him. And you can't fire me now. It's too late. So he really did have all the leverage. He's Goose freaking Hiddink. Very disappointing. And by the way, that is the game. That's the match.
Wow.
They just blow the whistle right away. I mean,
wow, man.
Do you got like any key takeaways from this game?
It didn't look outside of the first 15, 20 minutes where, South Korea was pushing forward and it looked like, they were trying to be the first ones on the score sheet. Outside of that, it looked like they were disinterested. It looked like they were disengaged for large portions of the game. And for the most part, you can see that maybe not necessarily on the attacking side because, South Korea, credit to them, they were still trying to get in good shooting positions to try to get the ball on the keeper. But for the most part, when the Ivory Coast were in counterattacking situations, you can see that defensively they were switched off, they were disengaged. And that's my biggest takeaway, where it's like, when you're going up against a quality opponent, and again, you're trying to find momentum heading into the World Cup. You're trying to look for a statement win, something that is going to motivate the group. When you're looking forward to those World Cup warm-ups before heading in, that's why these games are super important, because these are essentially dress rehearsals. And when you have this type of lackadaisical types of performances, you actually have to ask, like, number one, are the players disinterested, or is it more than that? Or is it, their coach is putting them in a position where they're not necessarily going to succeed. They're not necessarily playing a style of football that is, conducive to the strengths of the team. Right. And so from that standpoint, is it something that's just not clicking between coach and players? That could be, that very well could be. It just seemed like, when you're watching soccer and you're seeing a team absolutely get destroyed in that type of manner, and then you're kind of looking at the body language of the players, this close to the World Cup, man, that has to scare you. If you're a South Korean fan, that absolutely has to scare you, because it looks like okay, cool. So if they're willing to do this in a friendly on the doorstep of a World Cup against a team like Ivory Coast, who again are good, they're not great, they're good, they're a very good team. It makes you wonder how this thing is going to look like in the group stage come June.
I'm not looking forward to it, and I've been telling everyone, like, Hong Yong-bo should have never been the coach to begin with.
Right.
He showed his incompetence in the 2014 World Cup. Now, don't get me wrong, he had some achievements, had a great run to the quarterfinals in the 2009 U20 World Cup. He achieved bronze medal in the Olympics, but that's it. But when it came to a World Cup stage, he was massively incompetent. And back in 2014, he still put in the worst goalkeeper in South Korean history in Chung Sung-young, who was very clueless in the 2010 World Cup, and they still played him. And that's why he gave up 4 goals to Algeria. Now, don't get me wrong, Algeria was a pretty good team, but
sure,
still, you got to put in your best possible players. And he put in Park Chu-young out of Arsenal, who was sitting on the bench of Arsenal. And then when he quit, I was like, great, let's just never see him again. And then we have to deal with this. I have to deal with this again to watch South Korea get absolutely humiliated by Ivory Coast. And I don't want to hear the excuses, like you said, about, no, I don't care if this is just a friendly game to get warmed up. This is, like you said, it's a dress rehearsal to actually get ready for the World Cup. And I think just by this, I think this is all I need to know about how I think South Korea is going to do. I don't even think they're going to get a win out of the group stage.
The fight should be a minimum requirement. Fighting for your country's badge should be a minimal requirement for every single player. And it just didn't seem like they had the fight today. That's the unfortunate part about this. And that makes me question whether or not the coaching staff and the players are on the same page.
I don't think they are, and I think this says it all. That I think it looks like by the vibes, South Korea, the players, they don't respect Hong.
Hopefully the KFA is watching, and they won't be afraid to sack a coach for the betterment of the team, right? Because the end result is to have a very good result in the World Cup, right? The last thing you want to do is go out in the group stage losing 3 straight, right? Like, that's the last thing that you want. for the Korean Federation. So from that standpoint, it's like, dude, yeah, maybe he is somebody that is looked favorably within the KFA, but one of those leaders inside that federation has to be able to look out for the team before egos of coaches that are clearly in over their head.
Hong is clearly in the good graces of the Korean Football Association. So they hired him basically just because he was a hero in 2002. He led South Korea to a nice little run in the U20 World Cup in 2009, which, by the way, most Koreans probably don't even know that or remember that. And the Olympics in 2012. But come on, this was 2012, long time ago, different players.
Right.
I think that his failures in 2014 World Cup should have been more than evident why he cannot be a coach. And this is when you hire nostalgia for bad reasons. This was clearly a nostalgia hire, just like other teams that do it. They hire some guy because he did something 20, 30 years ago.
Well, I mean, Bruce Arena, when he came back to the national team in 2017, in the lead up during World Cup qualifying for the United States, they made the decision to let go of Jurgen Klinsmann after the first two matches in the early qualifying in CONCACAF. They made that decision, and instead of bringing in a coach that clearly could have put that team on the right trajectory, they hired Bruce Arena. Obviously Bruce had a good showing in the 02 World Cup, didn't necessarily have a good one in 06. But they bring in Bruce Arena because they figure he can calm he can bring some stability, and of course the U.S. didn't even the U.S. didn't qualify. So when you're doing that for nostalgia purposes, you have to be able to understand that it's going to be a good fit for the national team, and that's the thing. It's like you better be able to get this one right, because if it doesn't go right, it's going to end up looking bad on the federation. And so from that standpoint, it's like, you're wondering whether this current coach is going to be able to live up to expectations. And as of right now, it just looks like the players,
they look disinterested.
They
did not. I did not. There was no 100%. It was like after that first goal, they just seemed, and that first goal wasn't necessarily 100% their fault. But then after that first goal, they just gave up. When they gave up one goal, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. They'll bounce back.
That second goal killed their spirit. Their heads were dropped, and it just looked like they weren't running at 100%. It was bad. It was bad, man. It was bad.
It was bad. And like I said, I think we all agree that, like you said, that if you're a South Korean fan, you should be 100% concerned. We should not have this oh, it's just a bad friendly. But that's what most fans are going to be. They're just going to say, oh, it's just a friendly match. Who cares? But we're 2 months away. Now, if it was maybe a few months back, I'd be like, okay, fine. And let's not kid ourselves. This is not the South Korea team we should be expecting. Let's not forget, I think they tied Mexico and defeated the United States back in September. But it's not maybe that's where they got their egos. They're like, oh, yeah, we had a good 2 games a few months ago.
Well,
but that's a few months ago.
If they lost today 1-0, but they literally played hard for the entire 90, you can accept it. Because sometimes that's soccer, right? Where the best team doesn't necessarily win because there's a freak goal, and you can credit Ivory Coast because they bunkered and they played good defense, and no matter how hard South Korea pressed forward, tried to get that equalizer, they just couldn't do it, right? Sometimes that happens at high levels. This wasn't that. You didn't see a fighting performance throughout the entire 90. As a matter of fact, I would probably say that after the first 30 minutes, South Korea was like, it happens.
Yeah.
We'll live for the next game.
And we have seen great coaches. I'll go back to the 1980 team. Herb Brooks, he literally, after a tie against Norway for USA, he literally made his team stay after practice, even with the lights off, and even the stadium manager
because they played like crap. They played,
Yeah,
and it was unacceptable. It was
and the
unacceptable.
funnier part was the manager, the stadium manager's like, "Hey, you guys have to go," and Herberg's like, "No, give me the keys. I'll lock up." And because of that high discipline that Herb Brooks put on his players, they won 9-0 or 9-0 the very next day, and eventually won the gold. Now, I'm not saying that, and I do think that Hong, if he's still going to be a coach, he's got to set some discipline and respect for himself and from the players, but it looks like he's not commanding anything.
Well, I mean, just look at Maurizio Pochettino with the U.S. men's national team right now, and the culture that he had to change when he came in, because there was a lot of players that were comfortable. There was a lot of players that got comfortable under Greg Berhalter, and they could not take friendlies seriously. They used it as an opportunity to, catch up with other players, go golfing, and the friendlies were an afterthought, right? It didn't matter if you won or lose, and Mauricio Pochettino has to come in and be like, no. Every single time you wear the shirt, it matters. There is an expectation level when you step into the national team camp that you will be training at 100% and you will be playing the games at 100%. And there was a while there where there were certain names that were not called into camp because bad first impressions last a lifetime. Now, there's certainly a difference between a guy like Christian Pulisic and say a guy like Yunus Musa, but there's a reason why Yunus hasn't been called in. There's a reason why Gio Reyna didn't get called in for damn near a full calendar year. There was a reason why Joe Scally and some of these other guys were left off. And if I take you back to pre-Gold Cup, right, where what the U.S. used to do was they would have, two rosters for a Gold Cup, right, where it's like domestic players would get the group stage, and then if they advanced, then you would see like the main national team come in. And so Christian Pulisic was thinking that was going to be the exact same thing. And he only wanted to play in the friendlies leading up to it. And Pochettino was like, no. If you want to play, if you want to be with us, then you join us for the Gold Cup. And if not, that's it. And, that's the thing. It's like he set the tempo, and it's like, listen, what you guys were able to do under your previous coach, that's not how it's going to rock. You're either going to completely commit to the national team, or you're not. And these are the expectations that you have to live up to, or you're not going to get called in. And it took quite a while for the team to kind of come together. And then we saw that in that window, as a matter of fact, against South Korea. We absolutely got embarrassed against South Korea. And then the very next, match against Japan, that's kind of when that streak started. And now you look at the U.S. men's national team, it seems like they're kind of flying on all cylinders. And that's the challenge of an international coach, because you don't get to work with those players a lot. So when they do come in, the expectation levels have to be high, and players have to be challenged, and they have to understand that this is not just an opportunity to catch up with players that you haven't seen in a while. Like, this isn't just like it's a friendlies. It's, it doesn't matter. It's like, no. It matters. It matters. Because when you have these type of performances, we're sitting here talking about whether or not the players, even respect the head coach, let alone if they're on the same page, right? Like, that is disastrous heading into a World Cup. Like, these are the things that's supposed to be worked out like in year one of a 4-year cycle heading into a World Cup. Like, this should not be on the doorstep of a World Cup.
Yeah, now here's South Korea's coaching depth. We got Hong Yong-bol is the manager, and we got basically everyone else are Portuguese. Their assistant manager is João Arosso, Thiago Miaya, the tactical coach, and we got Kim Jin-kyu as one of the coaches, Kim Dong-jin. So it's like half Korean, half Portuguese.
Well, let one of the Portuguese dudes take it from here. You know what I mean? Like, certainly one of those guys are capable enough of putting together a formation that the players like and are going to go out there and have fun doing it, right? Like, let the Portuguese guy take over.
I mean, we had I forgot Paulo Bento. He led the South Korean squad. It was very up and down, but hey, he did something that not many coaches do for South Korea, is lead them into at least the knockout stage. And plus, especially for a group, here's the thing too, for the World Cup, it's actually a little bit. It's actually going to be a little bit harder to actually make it to the last 16 than it was before, because you could still be third place in your group, but as long as you have tiebreakers, you're fine. But it looks like South Korea might actually finish bottom of the group if they play. If they play this way, they will not even do anything.
Well, and with the expanded format now, it's like, that, you're absolutely right. A third place team is going to be able to advance, but that's not what you want. You want to be the team that is playing. You want to be a team that is the top of the group, because that next go round, you're playing somebody that is going to at least give you a better opportunity to move on to the round of 32, or into the round of 16. Being a third place team coming out of your group is the kiss of death, because you're going to be playing group winners at that stage. And it's like South Korea, like if they get by the skin of their teeth, that's pretty much going to be it for their World Cup, right? And so you're absolutely right. Like that is like, you have to be in a position where you're looking at your group thinking like, yeah, okay, this is going to be our group. Like, we're the best team in our group. And as of right now, I'm looking at it like Mexico has the advantage in Group A. They're playing at home. You know what I mean? And the group is
Denmark. They're probably going to be in number 2, and it's going to be a fight between South Africa and South Korea.
Now, what's funny is, like, I remember when the group was announced, and I was like, okay, cool, because it's going to be Mexico and South Korea, two best teams in the group. And you're looking at how South Korea has been playing over the last year and a half, 2 years. It's like, I don't know. It's like,
let's look at their matchup. So here's their previous matchup. On November 18th, they won 1-0 against Ghana. Okay, good for you on that. They won 2-0 against Bolivia, 2-0 against Paraguay. They lost 5-0 to Brazil. I still don't like that, because you still want to at least make it competitive and respectable. If it was like 2-0, I'd have been like, okay, fine, whatever.
I remember in the last Asian Cup, I think they lost to Jordan.
They did in the semis, and that's when Son Heung-min and Lee Gang-in got into a fight, and Jurgen Klinsmann literally lost the team.
It's like, it's like South Korea and Japan are the two teams that are going to be, like, I guess, the 1-2 when it comes to the Asian Cup, and maybe you can put Australia into that class as well too. But
Iran too.
The crazy thing about it is, it's like, you never should be losing. You should never be losing to Jordan. You should be like that's the thing. It's like, you look at some of these results between that loss against Jordan and to today. It's like it's been all over the map. There hasn't been a level of consistency with the South Korean team.
Nope, there has not. They've been unstable ever since pretty much 2002. It's been unstable since. And I could just go on and on about it, but I am unfortunately running out of time. I think I went on enough about Hong Myung-bol for a time, but for anyone that was here on the show, thank you for being here despite pretty much just talking. It was basically just a glorified catch-up, but when you have games like this, what do you expect, right? And it's a friendly match too, so
yeah, it's a friendly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead, go to stateside footy for the USA-Belgium match, and also I am considering to come back for the for the South Korea-Austria match. I think it's going to be on Tuesday. Tonight I'll be back for the Mariners and the Guardians game.
Ooh, yeah. So today starting at 3:20, 10 minutes before kickoff, the U.S. versus Belgium from Atlanta, Georgia. I'll be doing the live stream on Stateside Footy. Let me do this real quick before we go. And there we go. And there it is right there. The link is going to be right there in the chat right there. And of course, we start 10 minutes prior to kickoff, so we go over the starting 11s, and we give a little synopsis of what could be expected for that one, and then of course the full 90 will be live streamed on Stateside Footy. So yeah, head over there. It's going to be an absolute banger today.
Well, that is it. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Steve, and go Korea. I think.
Go Cougs!